Hello everybody, and today we are going to be checking out a scenario where World War III breaks out in 2025. Now, World War III is a topic that has been covered many times on various mapping channels, and I feel like everyone sort of has a different rendition of it, so, I thought it'd be interesting to see mine. If you guys do enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing and commenting your info for the channel. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And yeah, let's get straight into our scenario. So first of all, to try and culminate a World War III scenario, we're going to need two sides. And of course there's NATO, but I feel like that would be a little bit normy. So we're just going to pretend that NATO does not exist in this scenario because I feel like that would be too generic. So we're going to be starting off over here in the Russia-Ukraine war, with, of course, Russia attacking Ukraine. Now, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war has been going on since 2023, and it's actually, it's 2022. So yeah, the Russia-Ukraine war has been going on for a extremely long time, and yes, that's not really going to be changing right now. And the current front line, I haven't checked up on it in a while, but I'm pretty sure it still looks like this or something like that. Yeah, it looks something like this. But now we are going to see Moscow is going to, commit to this invasion, and they are going to bring in their entire military. You have some assets over here in Siberia, maybe over here in the Kola Peninsula, and yeah, they're just all coming down here. This is going to allow the Russian military to make a new offensive up here in the northeast. They are going to be able to follow along this river, and if I put on the capitals, which is something I should probably do, this river leads them to Kiev. And if you didn't know something, Kiev is the capital of Ukraine, and if that were to fall, then that would be pretty bad. But even worse for Ukraine, we see Belarus, a very close ally of Russia, is going to hop in on this war. With Russian military probably already being stationed there, we're going to see the infantry is going to move out from the front lines. But you might be wondering, okay, so this is not a world war yet. Well, you see that scenario, quote, world war yet. It will evolve. But in the meantime, we're going to see the front lines connect up, and I'm pretty sure all the major cities that Ukraine has is over here in Lviv. So we're going to see another offensive being formed with Russian and Belarusian military, and that is going to be aimed at capturing Lviv. And yeah, it's not looking very good for Ukraine right now. And also remember, in the scenario, NATO does not exist, so that means that if Russia attacks Lithuania, then that does not mean that this gets involved. But we're going to see Ukraine try and call some of their allies into the war. They're going to attempt to call Poland and the Baltic states into the war. Poland is going to accept, as they do not like what Russia's doing here, and the Baltic states are also going to respond to the call to action. And most likely, they have been preparing for this for a while, so the immediate reaction to the joining of these states, we're going to see Kaliningrad gets a little bit of invasion, not too much. That's because this is like a Russian stronghold, so it would never fall that easy. But now we're going to see Belarusian military is just going to reallocate it a bit to the west. But yeah, we're going to see a new offensive start to spring up inside of Belarus, and also, by the way, this is mostly Russian military. And they're going to move along the border of Poland and Lithuania, attempting to reach Kaliningrad and separate communications, because as you see, this is sort of a wall for Russia to deal with, and that is not ideal. So if you can just sever that wall and take over this, then the wall becomes a lot smaller. But the wall is not really doing its job, as now the full Russian military is going to unleash its fury onto the Ukrainian cities. They capture a major amount of territory in the northeast, and more land gains are created over here on the coast of the Black Sea, and they're almost able to make contact with Moldova. And now we're going to see some allies that are funding the blue team. They are sending military assets there. They have just not directly declared war on Russia, and that is going to include Germany, Finland, and yeah, that's it. Oh, and also Czechia. So the countries in dark blue, they represent the countries that are funding the blue team, like I just said, but they are not directly involved in the war. But we're going to have two countries pledging their allegiance for Russia, and that's going to be Hungary and Serbia. I know Hungary is in a really weird state right now where they're, of course, in NATO, but they're also really allied to Russia. So it's a little bit confusing, but they are going to pledge their allegiance to the Russian side. But of course, we're going to see the fighting continue, and in this case, we're going to see Russia creating a new offensive over here in northern Estonia. This is aimed, of course, at capturing the capital, being Tallinn, but it is also a primary goal to reach over here to the Gulf of Riga because that is warm water. And at this point, Denmark and Sweden would probably not let you out into the Atlantic at this point. And that's because Sweden is relatively close with Finland, and of course, Finland is financially involved in this war. And if they were to allow Russia to go through these ports, that would be economically counterintuitive to their ally. So of course they're going to be on the side of Finland, not economically, but just sort of a indirect way. But even without that outside exportation, we are going to see Russia getting over here to Riga, the Gulf of Riga. They're going to capture the South Island and then the North, and now all communications between the South Baltic states and the rest of Estonia are cut off, and the capital is officially captured. And now Russian military is going to be brought over here to the south, where they're going to create a whole front line against the Latvians. But at this point, the countries that are, backing the blue team, and they're like, yeah, these guys, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, they're going to join the war. So that means that Germany, Czechia, and Finland is going to join the war on the side of the blue team. And of course, that means a lot more military is going to be reallocated. Instead of financially funding, it's going to be military funding. And now Kaliningrad is starting to be squeezed out of itself, and eventually it is fully captured. But Russia is making up for that, as now they are gaining more coastline over here on the Gulf of Riga. Even a couple of offensives are created here into Finland, and one goes on the coast of the Gulf of Finland to try and get to Helsinki. At this point, Serbia and Hungary are in a little bit of a standstill. I mean, of course, they're being pressured by a certain somebody, and that certain somebody is urging them to not join the war, but, of course, they are going to join the war. And that is mainly for the justification so Serbia can declare war on Kosovo. And Serbia in all has a more powerful military, but Kosovo does have Albania and Montenegro, so they are joining. They're not really joining to stop Russia, they're just joining to try and secure the sovereignty for Kosovo. So with Albanian and Macedonian mercenaries, we are going to see the Serbians are stopped at the gates of Pristina. Is that the name of it? Yeah, I think that is. At this point, an entire Balkan war is probably going to break out, so yeah, let's actually do that. Greece does not like Macedonia, but they also like Serbia, so they're going to join there. Bulgaria, same thing. Montenegro likes Serbia. Croatia does not like Serbia. Slovenia too. And yeah, here's our Balkan War. Now, there are two big white spots here, and that is Bosnia and Herzegovina and Romania. And Romania and Bosnia are probably going to stay neutral in my eyes. But now we can see a new major front line is being opened up over here between Croatia and the red team with these two countries. Multiple offensive attempts are going to be created, one going into Serbia and one going into Hungary. Of course, now Germany is moving their infantry through Austria because Austria is neutral. And since Russia is at war and Austria could just kind of join the blue team, they can, throw out the window that forceful neutrality that they had to abide by. And they're going to be the only country to be allied to the blue team, but not really, like in the war. And this just kind of indicates that they are moving stuff through Austria. And this is going extremely well, as now Hungary and Serbia have been completely severed. But Hungary is able to move into their historic land. It's like over here and stuff like that. That was like Czechoslovakia. But at one point during World War II, this did belong to Hungary, so they're just going to go ahead and take that. Oh, and yeah, let's go and check up on where the war started. Oh, that's not good. Russia has made impressive gains, now reallocating all of their military to the front line. And of course, this military was being used for various things, such as just the gulags over here in Siberia, or maybe a little bit of public repression. But that German infantry, only about a quarter of it was occupying Königsberg, and at this point it has been fully switched over to the blue team. So now German military can wipe out their plan of connecting Kaliningrad and Belarus, because that plan has officially failed, of course with the capturing of Kaliningrad. And German forces are now going to push into the eastern areas of Poland, and into the western areas of Belarus. They move out just to kind of secure the Lithuanian capital of Vilnius. See, I'm trying to learn my capitals, and I know them pretty much all, but it's just kind of complicated in a way. Well, of course, you have to memorize like every single one. You have like Ankara, and then you have like Damascus, and like Cairo, and Tripoli, and Tunis, and Algiers, and Rabat. It's very boring, but it's also very good vocabulary. So I can also just say that Russia goes here and captures Riga. I'm not doing that to test out my capital knowledge, that's just legitimately what happens. A naval landing is going to be made over here, and at this point more countries are going to join and fund the blue team. Of course, Russia is not very popular in Western Europe. See, the United Kingdom is going to pledge their allegiance. And remember, if you forgot, the dark blue team just means that they are supporting the blue team just indirectly in the war. France is going to be like, yeah, we want to support these guys. A lot of stuff has to be moved through Italy, and Italy is even kind of moving their own stuff here to try and sever the connections, which has worked successfully. So I guess we can kind of just color this in, since it should have been colored in already. And yeah, for the record, I am 13 years old, and I have little to no recognition about how like outside politics and stuff like that work. Now, not zero to none, like I know a little bit about it at least. Like, I know Russia doesn't like France and France doesn't like Russia. I know that much. But this stuff, if it is kind of counterintuitive sometimes, I do apologize. Because, once again, I just, I'm trying to learn this stuff. But moving away from my non-fit education, we're going to see some more countries joining the side of the blue team. That is going to be Sweden and Denmark. Now, I know I said joining the side of the blue team, and they're not doing that. They are joining the supportive pact that is supporting the blue team. And remember what I said earlier, they're not allowing the Russian naval vessels to go through, and they also want to help out Finland and, like the Baltic states and Poland. So they're going to do that by funding them directly. But now Russia has ramped up their invasion over here in the east in Finland. There might be some nuclear information in the Kola Peninsula, so them like that having been captured, that would be really bad. But this is a bulk of their military, and some more guerrilla warfighters are going to push them back in the north. And this is going to include the reallocation of some of their forces. So that means that, well, the front lines aren't going to change because of this, but they are going to become a lot more unstable. But, Russia, you're getting very close to, oh, yep, there it is. So now with full Russian military involvement, and of course them being the second or third strongest country in the world is kind of interchangeable, it's not looking very good for the blue team. But I did say World War scenario. Oh. Yeah, that makes sense. The United States is going to officially join the war. Now, of course, before they were doing this, they were sending over their supplies and stuff to the blue team, and now they're just doing that a lot more. And I didn't really want to color them dark blue because I, didn't want to foreshadow. But we're going to see some countries that are going to join onto the side of Russia, or at least sending over their funds. This being Iran, Syria, Turkmenistan, and yeah, that's about it. And Russia's just going to decide to declare war onto Georgia. This is because if everybody's going to war, then why not just bring them in too? So of course with this, they are going to automatically gain their territories of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. And eventually, like I just said, the full involvement of the Russian military, that is just going to absolutely demolish Georgia. And yeah, eventually Tbilisi is threatened and captured by the Russian military, cutting the country in two. And eventually the west and the east will fall, and what turns into a full occupation of Georgia. Now Turkey is a complicated scenario. Now I don't really see them joining the western side because their ideologies fit a little bit more with Asia. But of course if you join Russia's side, then you're going to be on with Greece. So in all reality, Turkey would probably be neutral. But at this point, we're going to see a couple of countries that were supporting the blue team get involved. This is going to be the UK, France, Sweden, and finally, Italy. Now, countries that are a little bit more skeptical of the blue team's ability to win the war, like Denmark and Austria, they are going to refrain from the war for now. But yeah, it's not going very good for Russia. But North Korea is going to join. Oh, and then South Korea joins. Then Japan joins. Oh, God. Okay, so the Philippines is also going to join. What are you thinking, China? Do we do this? I think we do this. And then, of course, that means you. And you know what? Why not? Vietnam too. So yeah, now we have a brand new theater opening up over here in the Eastern Asian areas. And there are some regions over here that would just absolutely crumble. The first being over here in North Korea. The South Koreans and the Japanese have probably been gearing up for this for a while, probably since the Russian-Ukrainian war started to intensify. And at this point, South Koreans are going to be able to liberate more and more of North Korea, and at which point they reach Pyongyang. And the only military that is stationed inside of North Korea at this point is Chinese military. Eventually, Japan is going to make a little landing inside of Sakhalin. This isn't really that relevant or necessary, but they are still going to do it. But then this happens, and yeah. Something that I should also probably mention is naval front lines. So actually, let me draw that up real quick. Alright, so this is what we see the naval front lines looking like. And eventually, the Chinese Navy is going to push around the island of Taiwan, eventually capturing all of their outside areas that, countries could have gotten into. And at this point, Taiwan is just going to completely fall with the capturing of Taipei. And Chinese Navy is going to make more strikes over here, gutting over here to Japan. Never really taken the time to memorize these two islands' names. I feel like they come up a lot, so probably should do that. But moving away from the naval front lines, you can kind of just see I pulled that up so we could see the demolishing of Taiwan. Vietnam is actually going to have a little bit of the head over China. China never really thought that Vietnam would join the war, and if you look at history, Vietnam and China are pretty historic rivals. So Vietnam is going to be able to move out and capture a good chunk of Chinese territory here in the south. And the Filipino Navy is being sent up here to try and recapture the south of Taiwan. And of course, some vessels from Japan are trying to go. But most of Japan's military is going to be focused over here in North Korea. And at this point, China's a little scared that they will just keep going into Manchuria. And yeah, that no good. And eventually, their suspicions turn out to be true because they did just go more into Chinese territory. So yeah, this is not good. Japan was using their entire military, and of course, China has to kind of spread theirs out because you have to have like some personnel over here on the coastlines, of course, defending the naval areas. Then you have to reallocate a force over here to Vietnam. And then you have this, and you also have, you need to assist Russia with Sakhalin. So China's military, to say the least, is very spread out. And that's going to cause a couple of people to get mad. Okay, they are very mad. We see Tibet and Xinjiang breaking away. Now, they are two separate regions, so I'm actually just going to color them different colors of purple. But just do know that they are both on the same side, so their troop color will be the same, and they are going to attempt to try and invade into China. I don't know how plausible an invasion into China out here could be. Like, there are not many rivers here, and of course that is due to the geography, you know, the Himalayas. But interestingly enough, we're not going to see India take a side such as the one that Austria is taking, that is against Russia. Because, of course, India is a Russian ally, so they're going to pledge their allegiance to this rebellion. But indirectly, that also leads to their pledging of allegiance over to the Eastern Asians. And yeah, Thailand is going to do this as well, as in real life, I do believe they hold semi-okay relations with Russia. And yeah, it turns out the Tibetans and the Xinjiangians are going to get a lot of support. This allows for a new offensive to be created over here, linking up with the other one. And they're just going to kind of bulge out over here because over here is a lot more prosperous for Chinese cities and rivers and banks and stuff like that. And at this point, China is faltering severely. Hey, but look on the bright side. Now we can check up on Europe. Oh, yep, they're still obliterating each other. At this point, all of the Serbian military is being reallocated to Kosovo since all of their endeavors should be over there. And they're starting to leak into Albania, and so is Greece. So Greece and Bulgaria are going to work together with Serbia to try and get into these countries, which they do, and they completely capture them. And eventually, a non-aggression pact is going to be formed between Italy and these Balkan countries, because these Balkan countries, after the Serbians just go ahead and kick out Croatia, they realize that their endeavors are a lot different than the Italian one, so they're just going to say, hey, we're not going to fight, and cool. Oh yeah, and Hungary is completely occupied, and that gives Austria the safe feeling to join the war. And yeah, this is still pretty bloody. But is this a world war? Like, it's a northern hemispheric war, but I'm still not quite sure if it's a world war, because like, nothing's in Africa, nothing is in French Guiana, technically. Actually, yes, something is in French Guiana. But in South America, generally, there's nothing there. Oceania is actually going to join onto the side of the Eastern Asians. And of course, the endeavors that the Eastern Asians are pursuing are a lot different than the European endeavors. Of course, in the European interest, you want to re-liberate Ukraine and install a new government in Russia. But in Eastern Asia, it's a lot more, I guess, like allocated to the Chinese and that front. So the blue team, very divided. You know, because it's spread all across the world. But yeah, I said Africa was going to get involved earlier, and Africa is going to get involved. Okay, so this is actually not Africa, but we just see these guys joining. Alright, so now we're getting into dangerous territory. Alright, we see Egypt joining. Now, Egypt is relatively a American and Russian ally, so not quite sure how they would turn. But then, yeah, that happens, and that happens, and that happens, and that happens. So, we're gonna just knock this out of the way real quickly. Israel already has control over the West Bank, so we can color that in. But these countries have been waiting for a moment to jump on Israel, and the things they've been doing in the past couple of, like, years has been, you know, evident enough to say to the point that, you know, we have to ready our militaries. So they're gonna be ready for this. The Egyptian and the Jordanian militaries are gonna work together to invade the south, and Syria and Lebanon and Jordan are gonna work in the north, and eventually the entire state is going to be, yeah. And you know what, actually, just to, yeah, this is a lot better. I think this is, yep, that works a lot better with me. So, yep, that's what happens. Then we also have this happening, so, oh, yeah, no. Maybe we should sync them, but, yeah, there we go. Eventually, Saudi Arabia is going to be able to do some special operations down here, and that is going to allow them to get over in the east a lot. They're going to meet up with the Gulf over here. I think it's the Gulf of Aden. And eventually they're going to get to Sana'a, the Yemeni capital, and they're going to get to the Strait of Djibouti. And eventually Yemen is just crippled, so they're just going to go ahead and surrender. And generically, Saudi Arabia and... Wait, does Saudi Arabia not have a capital? You know, it will be fine. Just know it's Riyadh, and it's like right over here somewhere. But generically, Egypt and Saudi Arabia are relatively good allies. But now they're not, I guess. Saudi military is going to go up here into Jordan, and they're going to easily eradicate the government, capturing Amman. And Syria is just a whole other situation, so let's just knock this out. And of course, the Saudi Arabians are also going to make it their endeavors to move into the Sinai Peninsula. So, yep, they're just going to take that. And eventually, they're going to have white peace with Egypt. So now, Egypt is not directly involved in the war because Saudi Arabia told them so. And yeah, we see Iran making a couple naval landings over here with the primary purpose of trying to capture Riyadh. But, yep, now we see Denmark is going to fully commit to the war. And now this is what I would call a world war. At this point, the Chinese military being too spread out basically on all fronts, like, This is not a front that they have to deal with, but they do still have to send their military over here to assist Russia. They, of course, have to deal with this and the entirety of this. Also, India is indirectly involved, also Thailand. And at this point, it's getting so bad to the point where Thailand, the Philippines reinvades Taiwan. And Vietnam is now getting a lot of support from Japan, now able to increase their endeavors down here in the south of China. And at this point, a new democratic rebellion is going to break out inside of Beijing and the various major cities over here by like Shanghai and Nanking. Basically, that's all the population centers that they have left, and eventually a lot of the East is just going to reallocate their forces to a peaceful sort of government, so yep, that happens. China's government is now overthrown, and it might just be Taiwan. So maybe Taiwan will just expand massively in the peace treaty, who knows? I mean, I know, but yeah. Turkmenistan, they're going to leave. They see no purpose. Iran, they would probably never stop fighting, but eventually Saudi Arabia is going to kick out their little things here, and they're also just going to leave the war. This is because Iran is a very susceptible country to rebellion. And at this point, the entirety of Western Europe has mobilized, and Russia has been mobilized for a while. So now Western Europe is going to be able to recapture a lot of the Baltic states, which goes very well. The Leave counteroffensive is going to go very well, as now the Western Belarusians are going to be forced to reallocate to the east and possibly just flee to Russia. Ukraine, though, is dead. Their capital has probably been reallocated to Lviv, and yeah, they just captured that. So yep, there you go. But at this point, the people, they're tired of war, and after Russian endeavors were completely removed from Finland, and a lot of people here died for nothing, and now just moved down to Ukraine. A lot of rebels inside of the Donbass area are going to be seen also over here in like Kiev. We also see a big one down here in southern Ukraine. And these aren't so much southern, not southern sympathizers, that would be a completely different thing. But these aren't Ukrainian sympathizers, these are just people that are anti-war. And eventually they're able to regain the entire western areas of Ukraine, and finally capture the areas around Crimea. And at this point, everybody's tired, and everybody wants the war to stop. So we're going to see the war stop in a peace treaty that I'm going to demonstrate in 3, 2, 1. Alright, and this is what we see our peace treaty looking like. Now, there is a lot to unpack here, so actually, let's just go ahead and start to do that. So, Kaliningrad goes over to Poland, and the Baltic states are forced to pay a lot of reparations over to Russia. But over here in Belarus, we see the Belarusian country, which used to look like this. The country got divided into two, and this portion just opted to join with Russia. And this one has a brand new democratic government. This Ukrainian country is not going to be the same as the old one. It is a lot more centrist. It is more aligned with Russia or Europe. They got the Donbass and Crimea taken away, but that is a very small price to pay to stop war. Serbia is going to take the northern areas of Albania and Macedonia, and Greece will take the same, but vice versa in the south. And Bulgaria will take the eastern areas of Macedonia, and this is being weird. Alright, that's better. Saudi Arabia forms a little bit of a Saudi Arabian empire. You can see they took the entirety of Yemen, the entirety of Jordan, and they now have a puppet state located up here in Syria and Lebanon. Russia takes Georgia, and that's just about it for this area of the map. But now going over to Eastern Asia. Starting in the western areas of China, we see Xinjiang and Tibet getting their independence. Vietnam is not going to get this territory, but this is going to be a brand new country that is under heavy Vietnamese influence. Korea, well, previously South Korea, but now it is going to expand to these territories. And you might be wondering, what is going on here with this in Taiwan? Well, everything inside black is Taiwan, so this is now the original democratic government, which more aligns with the policies that Taiwan had. So yes, comme ci, comme ça, it's all Taiwan. But that will do it for today's scenario of what if World War III happened in 2025. I do hope you guys did enjoy. I know World War III has been demonstrated by like Adis Pro and all those other mapping YouTubers. So I thought I think this is a kind of different way to approach it, because I think Adis Pro did it a couple times where it was NATO and Russia, like purely, or sometimes it was NATO, Russia, and Ukraine. So that's kind of what this is based off, but then it clearly went into an Eastern Asian kind of thing. But yeah, kind of ignoring that, if you guys did enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing. Remember, we are on the road. We are on the road for 1,000 subscribers by the end of this coming year. And yeah, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video.